everyone, welcome to another deep dive.
Oh,
Today we're going to be talking about something really important, and that is the importance of recognizing the signs of rare diseases and advocating for your own health.
absolutely. It's something that we all need to be aware of.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at this through the lens of the story of a young woman named Alicia Ortstad from Sweden. Her story is chronicled in this article, and it's really about how a seemingly ordinary knee ache turned into this really intense battle with bone cancer that ultimately required amputation.
Yeah, it's incredible how something that seems so minor can actually be a sign of something so serious.
Yeah, so let's dive into Alicia's story. So she's 19 years old. She's working at a salad shop in Uppsala, Sweden, and it's the summer of 2023. And that's when she starts to experience this knee pain. And I mean, we've all had knee pain, right? It's like, maybe you tweaked it during exercise or you slept funny or whatever. So initially she kind of just brushes it off as, just one of those things.
Yeah, and that's often the case, right? With rare diseases especially, the initial symptoms can be so easily dismissed because they mimic more common ailments.
Exactly. So in Alicia's case, this knee pain is actually the first sign of osteosarcoma, which is a rare and aggressive form of bone cancer.
Right, and it's the most common type of bone cancer, but it's
Yeah.
still quite rare.
Wow. So over the next 18 months, so we're talking about a significant period of time here, her pain just progressively gets worse and worse to the point where it's excruciating. And during this time, she sees multiple doctors, both GPs and specialists.
It can be so frustrating trying to get a diagnosis, especially when it's something rare. Doctors might not immediately consider it.
Exactly. And so she's given, the standard treatments like rest paracetamol, even cortisone shots.
Yeah, treatments that you would normally associate with like an injury.
Right, not with cancer.
Yeah.
And get this, her requests for an MRI are actually ignored.
Wow.
Yeah, so this further delays her diagnosis.
That's really concerning. It highlights the need for patients to really advocate for themselves.
For sure. Like if something doesn't feel right, you got to push for answers.
Absolutely.
Ah,
And, as the pain is intensifying, she starts to notice these physical changes in her knee as well.
like what?
Like it swells up significantly to the point where it's like the size of a bowling ball.
Oh my gosh.
And there are these prominent blue veins that start to appear.
That's scary stuff. So clearly something more serious is going on.
Right. And it's around this time that she also starts experiencing these other symptoms that seem totally unrelated.
Oh, really? Like what kind of symptoms?
Like frequent colds.
Mhm.
She's constantly getting sick, extreme fatigue, and she's having trouble concentrating.
It's almost like her body is trying to tell her something, right?
Exactly. These additional symptoms, while seemingly unrelated, could have been signs that her body was fighting something much bigger.
It just goes to show you that you can't ignore these subtle signs. So finally, in December 2023, after months of this agonizing pain and being bounced around between doctors, she finally gets an MRI.
And that's when she receives the devastating diagnosis of osteosarcoma.
I can't imagine getting that news, especially at such a young age. What does that even mean for her?
So osteosarcoma is a type of bone cancer that primarily affects young people, typically under the age of 20. In the UK, for instance, there are only about 550 new cases diagnosed each year.
So she's right in that age range.
Yeah, and one of the challenges with osteosarcoma is that the early symptoms can be mistaken for growing pains or sports injuries.
That makes sense. So what are some of the things that people should look out for?
Well, persistent bone pain is a big one,
Mm-hmm.
especially pain that's worse at night,
Okay.
swelling around the affected bone, and a noticeable lump.
So if you're experiencing any of these things, it's definitely worth getting checked out.
Absolutely, early detection is crucial. The 5-year survival rate for osteosarcoma is around 60%, so catching it early can make a huge difference.
That's a really important point, and I think this is where Alicia's story takes an interesting turn. So she has a boyfriend named Simon Pedersen, and here's the incredible thing. He's a childhood osteosarcoma survivor himself.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and not only that, but he actually had to undergo amputation at the age of 10.
So he knows exactly what she's going through.
Exactly. It's like fate brought them together to face this challenge. It's just incredible.
It really highlights the power of shared experiences.
Totally. So despite having Simon's support, the doctors ultimately inform Alicia that amputation is the only option to prevent the cancer from spreading further.
This has been a really tough decision to make.
I can't even imagine to lose a limb at such a young age.
Yeah, it's a life-altering decision.
Yeah.
But in a way, it also brought a sense of relief to Alicia.
How so?
Well, for one, it finally gave her an answer. For so long, she had been in this agonizing pain without knowing what was wrong.
So at least now she had a plan of action.
Exactly. And she also knew that this was the best chance she had at beating this disease.
So in January 2024, she undergoes the amputation. And I'm sure the recovery was incredibly challenging.
Oh, absolutely. Amputation is a major life change, both physically and emotionally.
What are some of the challenges that people face after amputation?
Well, there's the obvious physical challenge of learning to live without a limb. You know, adjusting to a prosthetic and all of that.
Right.
But there's also the psychological impact. The phantom limb pain that many amputees experience can be excruciating.
That's where having a strong support system is so important.
Absolutely. And that's where Simon really stepped up. He was able to offer Alicia this unique form of support. Having gone through it himself, he understood her pain in a way that no one else could.
Yeah, he was living proof that life could go on after amputation, that you could adapt and still live a full and meaningful life.
Right. He gave her hope.
But sadly, her journey wasn't without further complications. Just a week after she starts walking again, she has to undergo another surgery.
What happened?
Well, they found a metastasis in her lungs.
Oh, no. So the cancer had spread.
Yeah, it was a huge setback. But even in the face of this new challenge, Alicia refused to give up.
She's a fighter.
Yeah, she is. And incredibly, within a week, she was back on her feet and determined to continue her recovery. She even managed to keep up with her studies from the hospital and home, and eventually she graduated in June 2024.
That's unbelievable. Her resilience is so inspiring.
It really is. So there you have it. That's part one of Alicia's story. And there's so much more to come. In the next part, we're going to delve deeper into the impact that Simon had on her journey and how she transformed into an advocate for osteosarcoma awareness. So stay tuned.
I think it's really incredible how Alicia and Simon's shared experience with osteosarcoma really created this really unique bond. It wasn't just empathy, you know?
Right. It was like a deep understanding.
Exactly. He had been there.
Yeah.
He knew the fear, the doubt, the physical and emotional toll that comes with this disease.
And he could answer those questions that no doctor could.
Right. He could offer reassurance and a glimpse of what life could be like after amputation.
And it's not that he sugarcoated anything, it's just that he had lived it. He had adapted and thrived.
And that must have been incredibly powerful for Alicia to see. It gave her hope.
It really highlights how important support networks are, whether it's family, friends, or even just groups of people who are going through similar challenges.
Absolutely. It makes such a difference to know that you're not alone.
And what's amazing is that Alicia, even while she was going through all of this, she also wanted to support others.
Yeah, she started connecting with people online, sharing her story, offering encouragement to others facing osteosarcoma.
It's like this beautiful cycle, receiving support and then giving support.
It's empowering.
And by sharing her story so publicly, especially on platforms like TikTok, she was able to raise awareness about this rare disease that many people had never even heard of.
Right. She was giving a voice to those who felt unheard.
And she was doing it with such honesty and vulnerability. People really connected with her.
Her message really resonated, especially her emphasis on early detection.
It's so crucial with a disease like osteosarcoma.
Absolutely. And her message goes beyond just osteosarcoma.
Yeah.
It's about being in tune with your body.
Right. Recognizing when something isn't right. And speaking up,
don't be afraid to push for answers, especially if your concerns are being dismissed.
I mean, think about it. Alicia's symptoms were ignored for over 18 months.
It's scary to think what could have happened if she hadn't advocated for herself.
It's a reminder that we need to be our own health advocates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what can people do to be more proactive?
Well, I think it starts with being informed. Do your research. Learn about your symptoms, the potential causes, the available treatment options.
There are so many resources available these days. Online support groups, even social media.
Right. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to have those conversations with healthcare professionals.
And when you are talking to your doctor, be prepared. Make a list of questions. Take notes. Ask for clarification if you need it.
Don't be afraid to ask for a second opinion.
Exactly. And it can be helpful to bring a friend or family member to appointments for support.
Sometimes they can think of questions that you forget.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all about building that support network.
And Alicia's story is such a powerful example of how important that is.
For sure. And remember, there are organizations out there specifically for people facing serious health challenges, like the Bone Cancer Research Trust or the American Cancer Society.
They can provide information support groups and even connect you with others who are going through similar experiences.
Don't hesitate to reach out for help.
So as we reflect on Alicia's journey, I think it's clear that her story is about so much more than just osteosarcoma. It's about the power of human connection, the resilience of the human spirit, and the importance of advocating for your own health.
It's truly inspiring.
And it's not over yet. She continues to advocate for osteosarcoma awareness and inspire others with her incredible resilience.
She's a true role model.
And in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore some practical steps for self-advocacy. We'll talk about some valuable resources, and we'll look at the inspiring ways in which people like Alicia are making a difference in the world. So stay tuned.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Alicia's story, one thing that just keeps coming back to me is that idea of self-advocacy, especially when it comes to our health. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's such a key part of her journey.
It really was.
And I think it helped her navigate this really complex medical system to get the care that she really needed.
It's so easy to feel intimidated in those situations, especially when you're dealing with something as serious as, a potential cancer diagnosis.
Right. And I think with rare diseases in particular, like osteosarcoma,
Yeah.
early diagnosis can be absolutely crucial.
It really can.
And sometimes that means, that patients really need to push for further investigation, even when their concerns are initially being dismissed.
It's so true. And I keep thinking back to how Alicia's symptoms were kind of brushed off for over a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, what if she had advocated for herself sooner?
Right.
What if she had insisted on that MRI earlier?
Yeah.
Could have made a huge difference.
Yeah. It's a sobering thought for sure.
It is.
But it's a good reminder that we can't always rely solely on, healthcare systems to catch everything. Sometimes we have to be our own best advocates. But, that said, it can be tough to know where to even start.
Right.
Like, how do we become more effective self-advocates? Especially when we're facing, a health challenge.
I think a really good first step is just being informed.
Okay.
Doing your research, understanding your symptoms, the potential causes, learning about the different diagnostic tools that are available, and treatment options.
So it's like arming yourself with knowledge, basically.
Yes, exactly. And there are so many resources available these days.
Yeah, like where would you even start?
Well, there are reputable medical websites, patient support groups, even social media can be a good source of information if you're careful about where you're getting your information from.
Right, right. So it's like the more you know, the better equipped you'll be to really have those conversations with your healthcare providers.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember that you're part of the healthcare team. Your input is valuable. So we go to an appointment. Come prepared. Make a list of questions that you want to ask. Take notes during the appointment.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to ask for clarification.
Yeah.
If you don't understand something or if you need something repeated or explained in a different way.
It's your health.
It is. And I think it's also important to trust your instincts. If something feels off, if you have this persistent symptom that's not being addressed,
right,
don't ignore it.
Yeah.
Speak up. Ask for more investigation. And if necessary, don't be afraid to get a second opinion.
Sometimes it takes a little bit of persistence.
It really does. And you have a right to access your medical records.
Yeah.
You have a right to seek a second opinion. And you have a right to make informed decisions about your treatment plan.
And sometimes it can be really helpful to bring like a friend or family member to appointments with you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Or for support.
They can offer emotional support. They can help you remember information. They can even ask questions that you might not think of in the moment.
Yeah, because sometimes you get in there and you're nervous and you forget everything you wanted to ask.
Exactly. It's all about building that support network.
And we've talked a lot about Alicia and Simon and that amazing support that they had for each other.
Yeah.
But I think for anyone facing, serious health challenges, like bone cancer in this case, there are some fantastic organizations out there that can provide support.
Absolutely.
Like the Bone Cancer Research Trust, for example.
Yeah.
Or the American Cancer Society.
Yeah, those are great resources.
They can connect you with support groups. They can provide information about different treatment options.
And they can just offer emotional support, which is so important.
Yeah. And just that sense of community, that
it.
you're not alone in this.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we kind of come to the end of our deep dive into Alicia's story, I think the big takeaway here is, be your own champion.
Be your own advocate.
Be informed, be proactive, and don't underestimate the power of your voice.
Your health is worth fighting for.
It really is. And there's always hope.
Always.
There's help available, and there's strength within you and within the community that surrounds you.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Alicia's story. I hope it's inspired you to be more aware, more proactive, and more empowered when it comes to your own health.
And if you'd like to learn more about Alicia's journey, I highly recommend checking out her TikTok. She's an amazing advocate for osteosarcoma awareness, and she's just a true inspiration.